G'day everyone, my name is Tom Craig and you're listening to my podcast, The Help Side, where we speak to some of the most recognisable names in world hockey and get an insight into who they are, what they're about, and what makes them tick. Now, if you like what you hear, feel free to follow our socials at The Help Side on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. We'd absolutely love that. Now, frankly, I'm pumped to share today's interview with you because he's a pretty big fish and possibly one of my most admired athletes across any sport. Now, if you've listened to previous episodes of The Help Side, you'd know his name, as he's a popular answer for the question, best player ever played against. Today's interview is with dual Olympic Gold Medalist and 2012 FIH World Player of the Year. It's the ex-German international and ex-German captain, Moritz Fuerste. In the decade before his retirement in 2016, few players on the international circuit commanded as much influence on the game than Mo, whether it be scoring penalty corners, breaking the game open through the midfield, penetrating opposition defence with his pass, or simply imposing his presence with his voice. He was one of those players that opposition teams just could not miss. Over the next two parts of this interview, Mo offers incredible insight into the culture of German hockey and what makes it unique. Mo's take on sports psychology and his approach to leadership and Olympic success are as interesting as they are powerful, and you won't want to miss them. In this part A of the interview, we start by reminiscing old times during the Hockey India League before moving on to a discussion about some of Mo's most memorable hockey moments, including that victory over the Kookaburras in the 2012 Olympic semi-final, which he credits as being one of the greatest games in which he's ever played. This is hockey royalty, folks. Please enjoy the help side of Moritz Fuerste.
This could be the last chance for Germany. Fuerste into the back of the net. Germany have saved themselves from 2 goals down, and it's 2 goals from their captain, Moritz Fuerste, that sends the German fans into overdrive.
Germany then with a chance to take the lead at half-time. It is Fuerste from the top, goes high and beats George Pinner, beats Barry Middleton, and Germany have the lead going in here at half-time.
All right, we're back online, back to the video podcasts. Very special guest, superstar of the modern era, and my first German guest, Moritz Fuerste, joins me from Hamburg, I believe. How are you, man?
That's true. Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
No problem at all.
Interesting way to meet again.
Absolutely. Well, the last time I saw you was, they were pretty good circumstances, actually. I was pretty fresh. You were probably pretty tired. The final of the HIL. That was a big payday for you.
It could have been better.
Actually, I forgot about that. It could have been better. What happened again?
So, if I remember, with a second to go, basically, we got that last corner, and so they had this rule that field goals counted 2, right? You remember? Yeah. And short corners counted 1. So I think Glenn, Turner, was the leading goal scorer with I don't remember, but something like, let's say, 12 goals. Yeah. So he scored 6 field goals, counted 12. And I think I scored 11 short corners. So, and then with like a minute to go, not even, we got this last corner leading 3-1. And I remember us thinking up front, what shall we do? Shall we flick it? Because if we miss, they could, on a counterattack, still score a goal for 2 goals, and then it's a draw. So if we just don't flick it and keep the ball in the corner, then we win. And we thought about that. I remember that. But then I flicked it and we scored it. And so I scored my 12th goal as well. And then they decided that we're on top goal scorer list. So we shared the prize for top goal scorer. And then they decided that there was this discussion about who's going to be the player of the tournament, which was the real big check, right? And then they decided that they won't give a player 2 prizes. So they came to me and said, oh, if you hadn't scored that last corner, then you might have gotten that check. And in the end, so I didn't win top scorer because I shared it with Turner and I didn't get best player. But anyway, it was a great day anyway.
It was classic. That was good. That was against Mumbai,
I
believe.
I have to sometimes do stuff here.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Do whatever you need to do. That was Mumbai. That was good. That was a good tournament.
Your starting point basically in the senior world, I believe, right? Kind of.
My starting point, you probably wouldn't remember, was when my starting point was when we both got sent off in Bhubaneswar. That was my starting point. I don't know if do you remember that?
Okay, that was earlier. Yeah, of course. That was in Bhubaneswar when you tried to provoke it. How you say that? Me and you were trying to play really strong with 15 years or something like that.
I'm pretty sure you took a dive from memory. I was just standing there, just minding my own business, and then you ran into me and dived, and then we both got sent off. That's how I remember it.
Well, that sounds more likely, I guess.
But I do remember actually after that game, you came up after the game. We were shaking hands because it was a pretty good game actually. I think we lost 3-1, and you guys were pretty red hot. But after the game, you came up and you said, "Oh, was it 3-2?" Okay, and you said you've got a lot to learn. And I remember thinking, I was so mad. I was so mad in that moment. Anyway, but it was true. I've got a lot to learn, and hopefully you can teach me a little bit more today.
Sounds like me. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Hey, that's okay.
My moment.
It's okay. It was a good game, and you guys won. So congrats on winning the tournament. So you're out of the game now.
Yeah, we were 3-0. We were 3-0 up. We were 3-0 up in that game, and then.
Yeah. And then was it 3-0?
Sorry. Yeah, up in that game, and then you came back pretty strong to 3-2. That was the Bhubaneswar champions. Yeah. Yeah, and we had to win that tournament because we completely fucked up the World Cup that year. So everyone back home was like, okay, this cannot happen again. We have to play well at the Champions Trophy, and we went with a really young team. So that was a really important win for us in the build up to whatever followed after.
Yeah, true. And I think you were missing. I think Toby Hauke was injured, wasn't he, at the time? So you were it was a really young team. We remember that. And it was pretty much you playing.
No, he was playing.
Was he? Are you sure?
Yeah, we had three senior players, but Toby was one of them.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
And the rest was under 21s.
At Champions Trophy, do you remember the Pakistan beat India? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember a lot about that Champions Trophy because, as I just said, it was pretty important for us from a rebound perspective after the really bad World Cup. And yeah, that was crazy. And I don't know if you remember that before the final, when the Pakistanis won the semi-final against India. So they were throwing the finger at the crowd, and two of their players got suspended. And the final, because we bet you guys in that game that we were just talking about in the semis. So we played Pakistan in the final, and it was unbelievable. It was like being an Indian team. The crowd they were screaming for us. They went nuts the same way they go nuts for India during normal games. It was really, really interesting. It was basically impossible for Pakistan to win that game because they were playing against 17,500 people. And I remember standing for the national anthems, and when the Pakistani anthem came up, the crowd was throwing a finger and screaming and shouting, and you couldn't hear the national anthem of Pakistan. That was intense. That was really intense. We were watching that game on the sideline, right? Because we just played India in the third, in the bronze medal match. And at halftime, no joke, because there must have been like a verbal altercation between the Pakistani players and some Indian fans outside. So I don't know if you noticed, but at halftime, some of the Pakistani guys actually trying to get up into the crowd to like fight the Indian crowd or something like that. It was completely mental. So there was like this like ruckus in that under the stadium, you know, that kind of pitch alongside Bhubaneswar, and the Indian guards and the Pakistani players were like pushing and shoving, and it was like that was the most mad tournament ever, and that was my first tournament, so it was like welcome to international hockey. No, it's true. It's a big rivalry, and it's been going on forever. And even in my first Champions Trophy that I played, which was 10 years before that, in 2005 in Chennai, also in India, there was this amazing game. I think it was 6-5 in the end for Pakistan, and that was my first experience with like that rivalry derby hockey game, and that was also crazy. So it's been going on forever. But to say the least, the players are pretty fine with each other. So in the first season of the Hockey India League, when I still played for Ranchi, we had 2 Pakistani players on the squad that should have played with us, and then during that year there was this execution of a couple of Indians close to the border. So then the people went crazy for the Pakistan players in Mumbai. They even attacked the changing rooms and tried to get to the Pakistani players. So that's when the Hockey India League decided that overnight all the Pakistani players to leave the country and couldn't play. And I remember that the Indians were really upset about it because so they struggle amongst their countries, obviously, but not so much about amongst the players. They're actually pretty fine there.
I remember there was a story because Rick Charlesworth was coaching I think it was the Mumbai team, right? Mumbai. And was Glenn in the change room at the time? Yeah, that was crazy. And people were coming into the change room and trying to point out guys who were Pakistani, and I don't know what would have happened, but that's just mental. Anyway, I'm interested in what you said about the way that people back home were really expecting big things of you at Champions Trophy, because the World Cup 2004, there's kind of like this stigma around the German team where like some tournaments just don't really matter, and it's all about kind of winning the big ones, like people talk about Germany popping up at the right time for the 2008 Olympics and the 2012 Olympics and so on and so forth. And it's always about peaking at the right time. And in between that, there's a focus on study. So like people like Christopher Zeller will go off and study his law degree or whatever for a couple of years. And I'm not sure about you, but people come back at the right time. It's interesting you say that there was a lot of pressure around that Champions Trophy tournament because of the World Cup. What does that kind of look like back home?
So it was rather the pressure that we set ourselves. No much, to be honest, no one's interested in the Champions Trophy here in Germany, at least from the media perspective. It's like it's only the hockey community that knows about such a tournament, unfortunately. But it was rather, the World Cup. I taught my PCL before the World Cup, so unfortunately I missed that tournament. And sitting in the crowd and watching the guys play and really not playing too bad, but exactly what you said, just not finishing on those last 2% that you need. So I remember the boys lost 1-0 to Argentina and 1-0 to Holland in the group stages, and that was basically it. So they didn't qualify for semis, and then I think they had a really bad game against Belgium for 5th and 6th or something. So yeah, that was a disappointment, not making the semifinals for first time in I don't even remember when we didn't make it before that. So that was a really big disappointment. And then we decided, or the team decided, that we're not going with the first team to the Champions Trophy. So they said, okay, we're not taking the senior squad because we don't want to focus on that. We don't want this to be a focus for this year. We're focusing completely on the Europeans to qualify for the Olympics, and for Champions Trophy, it's fine. We just take a B squad basically. And then so they asked who would be available and who wants to play, and it was 2014, so it was basically during that time when Hockey India League was going on. So I didn't play the World Cup, so I wanted to go back out there and play. So I told the coach that I want to play, and Toby Hauke, he wanted to play as well because he always wants to play. That's why he has more than 1,000 caps probably already. So we went, and also Linus Butt, another player who played the World Cup, he was going, and then we took only youngsters. So not only very new youngsters, so also guys like Christopher Rio or Mats Grambusch, they went, but they weren't very experienced during that time. It was basically the first or second major tournament after the World Cup. And that's why I remember so much about that tournament, because we basically had no chance to win it. So we lost all the 3 pool games, finished 4th of the group. And then I don't know if you remember then that it was this quarterfinal rule that you had to, even if you finished 4th, then you played the quarterfinal. And this was basically made for us because we needed those 3 games to really understand what it was like on the world stage again. And we got our asses kicked by basically everyone in that group. And then in the quarterfinal, we played England because they finished first in the other group. And we knew that we can beat them because we could always beat them. And I don't even we just lost 1 game in my entire career against them when it counted, and that was in the 2009 European Cup final. But yeah, so we were very confident going into that game, and we had and this was what you were just saying. So we knew if we were on spot, focused and concentrated, that we had a chance in those KO games, because they are just, 60 minutes and there's a winner at the end, and it's only about those 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So we bet them very confidently, to be honest, 2-0, and then played you guys. Had a really, really good first half against you guys, being up 3-0. Obviously, you guys coming back, we expected that, but we could fought our way through it to hold up to that win. And then, yeah, as I said, the final against Pakistan. And so in the end, this was a strange tournament because we lost as many games as we won in that tournament. But in the end, we won the more important ones. So finished winning at the end of the tournament. I even remember, I think you guys only lost less games than we did. I think you just, I don't even know if you lost another game apart from all. So that, yeah, something like that. So I just remember that it was really, that quarterfinal rule was so stupid. But anyway, in this tournament, it was good for us.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So yeah, we were happy about that. But to answer your question properly, it is true. So we never, to every tournament we went, before the tournament, we would say, okay, come on, we want to win it. Or we want to play well. But it is right that and I think that's really important, there are these 5% that you need to go into such a tournament if you really want to win it. Otherwise, you find yourself in positions where you are not doing that last step and not going for that last inch and not sliding that tackle, because in the back of your mind, you're like, well, it's not the Olympics, it's not the World Cup, Yeah. So that's definitely that was something we were looking to. We were looking up to you guys and also Holland, teams that could crash a team being 7-0 up and then still going the last 20 minutes as if it was a draw at that time.
Yeah,
we never did that. So we never won a game with more than 3 or 4 goals, because for some reason that was like, okay, it's fine, we did it, so let's move on. And then we tried to save some energy or whatever.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because often in Australian circles we talk about, I remember especially through that period, often Germany's a team that we're looking at because of your success rate, but it's the opposite. We talk about how to win close games, or instead of just kind of, pressure, foot on the throat, just scoring as many goals as you can, grinding out a close win. And I think a really good example of that was the 2008 final that you guys played in against Spain. You scored a goal in the first half, I think. And then it was a 1-0. It was a 1-0 win in the end.
Yeah, that's true. And it is. Well, there are 2 games I recall that were a little bit like that. And it's interesting because people have different opinions about the game. So that was the first one. And Spain had the best offense at that time with 3 amazing players up front: Paul Amat, Eduard Tubau and Santi Freja. 3 of the best forwards at that time playing in the same side. It was basically impossible to mark them over an entire game. But we tried and we did, and luck is always a bit important part of winning an Olympic gold or a big tournament. So I remember them hitting the post twice, even on a corner. They had 7 or 8 corners that game. But in the end they didn't score, and we also hit the corner on another one, the post on another attempt. But it was a tight game, and I think that was definitely one of the strengths, that we had the self-confidence. But also, what's also part of that? I really believe that you guys and the Dutch guys, because I know that's also only you guys thinking about that, and thinking about what do they do right by always winning those tight games during that era, right? That is also a big part of the success, because it basically means what you say when you play, I don't know, poker or something like that. That's the typical, we got into their minds, into their head, kind of situation.
So you're saying that the fact that we think about that means that's already a kind of win for Germany. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's at least a percentage of the cake. That's a part of the cake that makes the success, because it means that during the next game when we play each other, and it's a close game, that thought will come up in your mind because you thought about it before, and you will definitely think, oh fuck. When you're 2-0 up and we score a goal, you will be like, fuck, hopefully it's not happening again. And that's I think I studied psychology, and I think that's an important first step. That's not enough to win games, but it's one little piece of the cake, I think, and of the puzzle. And then on the other hand, we had the self-confidence due to those years between, let's say, 2005, 6 and 12, 13. We had the self-confidence that we also thought ourselves in tight games, we don't have to worry so much. We will find a way to still win it. And that mixture was already part of the story, I guess.
Now, if you missed it last week, I spoke to the man they called the Tattooed Titan, ex-Kookaburra and striker extraordinaire, Kieran Govers. Here's a peek. I want to jump back to 2014 because that was an unbelievable tournament. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about that team, what made it so good, and I want to talk about, again, one of the most famous goals, I'd say, probably played highlight on YouTube against GB, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yep. Yeah, in the round game, I think it was. About the goal, it was sort of because I can't remember who we were playing, maybe Spain the game before, and I got absolutely roasted in the team. Like, one thing in a team meeting, if you want a piece of advice, you do not want to be in a clip. That's one thing because I tell you, like, there'll be the clips about this, but people look to see whether they're in the clip first. And the worst thing was, like, I was prime time centre of this clip, and I think it was Rob smashed the ball through the, 30, 40 metres out, and it went past the far post, and I was already walking off for half time because there was only a couple seconds left. And I got ripped a new one by Rick in the team meeting. You keep playing until that whistle went, blah, blah. I was like, because I was speaking to Henry Weir a couple of weeks ago about it as well, and that, so GT and I were called like Bash Brothers, B1, B2, and like sort of we normally played sort of majority of our hockey together, like on the pitch. And I remember, like, I didn't really see Knowlesy have the ball, and someone was pushing GT, so I was like, I'm going to go and hit this guy too. So then I was walking up, and all of a sudden I just see Knowlesy like finish his overhead like technique, and I was like, oh no. And I'm just hightailed back, and like lucky Henry could sort of come with me and didn't follow me back. And just tapped it in between in between my hands or something, and it went in the goal. And I went over and jumped on Devo. So that's how it sort of panned out, because I wanted to go hit one of those GB plays. So then then it turned out into a goal that's been played over YouTube over and over again.
It's so good. There's plenty more where that came from. Make sure you check out episode 12 of The Help Side of Kieran Govers. Now, back to Mo. So the 2006 World Cup final was something that I've seen as well. And that was a little bit of a melt from the Aussies, I guess, in the sense that they were ahead, they were winning. And then you guys came back, and Christopher Zeller again played incredibly well. And you would have been very young in that match. You would have been, 20, 21 or something?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
What are your memories of that game? Is that kind of the catalyst of it all? Yeah,
100%. I just wanted to say that. So that tournament was just like basically every other tournament we had. That was a very, very hard tournament for us. We had Korea, who were amazing during that time in the group stages, as well as Holland. And Korea bet Holland in the very first game, so we had a really tough group stage with winning by 1 goal against GB and winning by 1 goal only against India, and then drawing with Holland 2-2. And then in the last game, we had a draw was enough against South Korea, and I never had a game like that. So final result was 0-0.
No
we
way.
both made it to the semifinals.
So both of you were kind of playing for a draw.
Basically.
That's crazy.
And we didn't. So we hit the post even during that game, and we had a few chances, but they didn't want to win. During that times, you could smash the ball into the circle when you were standing in front of the circle. Right? So that was still allowed. And Korea was unbelievable. They scored 3 goals against Holland when they won 3-2 in the first game of that World Cup. And it was 3 times a deflection with some of the guys. Kang was his name back then. He just smashed it into the circle, and they had 3 or 4 suicide divers that were on the posts, and they deflected them in. So they won 3-2. And against us, they didn't do that once in the entire game. Whenever they had a free hit in front of the circle, they would go back to the back 4 and just pass it backwards.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
We knew they weren't trying to attack us, because they were in the end afraid. Even if they would score a goal, they were afraid that we would come back at them. And so what we did was we played it also very smoothly, and that's how we made it both to the semis, and Holland was out.
Was there a conversation about this, like at halftime or something?
Yeah,
it was spoken about?
No, we were talking about the entire time, but we said, we're not doing anything on purpose. We just, let's see how it goes. But obviously the Dutch were furious, and they were claiming, and even the stadium was in me, and they booed at us.
Seriously?
After the game. And then our coach went in front of the media and said, guys, have to understand, we don't get why you're booing. We made the semifinals of the World Cup. If we would have lost, we would have been out. And that's how we made the semifinal now. So what's your problem? But obviously, I mean, that game was a dirty one. So no chances, no corners, no goals. So people were furious. Yeah.
And that was at home.
That was in Mönchengladbach. That was in Mönchengladbach.
Yeah.
So then the final, that was the game changer of it all, because we just after halftime, Australia scored 3-1, and I think Eglinton scored it. I'm not 100% sure right now, but so they scored 3-1, and it was like, okay, 25 minutes left. What can we do now? And then something happened. I don't know what. I don't even remember well. What we didn't really change anything, but it just clicked, and we were just going forward. We were not trying to defend something that we couldn't win at that time. So we were going for it. And then Christopher Zeller played that pass that I could deflect into, which was the 3-2. And I remember running back and had goosebumps all over my body because the crowd just erupted. And and then the rest is kind of, at least German hockey history. There was this goal which wouldn't be allowed today because Björn Emmerling hit it with the back of the classic bow Argentinian backhand hit, where you overhit it basically and it bounced into the ground. So nowadays it would be like a free hit out for sure. And then Christopher Zeller, who was also only 21 by that time. No, wow. 20. He was just like me. He was 20 by that time, but he played in that tournament. He was the designated World Player of the Year.
Really?
He scored 8 field goals in that tournament and scored 2 goals in the final. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So in the end we won that game, and it was crazy. And I remember Jamie couldn't play for Australia, which was a big loss for them, for you guys. So in the end we were also a little bit lucky there. But I mean, that was crazy.
That is nuts. When you have a player like Christopher Zeller on your team who is just playing that well, is there a conscious thought to just get the ball to him as much as you can, or he just kind of found his way into the game?
No, I wouldn't say. It's not like in basketball. It's not so much like you have that go-to guy, but of course, I mean, if I played in midfield, if you're in midfield and you see a chance to pass the ball to someone like him, of course you're giving him the ball. So so I think it's a little bit of yes and no. but the concept wouldn't be, let's find a way to get him the ball. It's rather like, you know, it is in the decision making should be that if you have a chance to give him the ball like 20 meters, 25 meters in front of the goal, that's where you need to give him the ball.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's a really interesting point you raised about not having to defend something that you didn't have, you know. And we see that all the time playing games against each other. And I'm sure you would have it over in Germany as well, where teams are up by a couple of goals or 2 or 3 goals. Then they start playing their worst hockey of the game. And the team who's behind often kind of lift and pick up. And more often than not, they'll come back and either win or tie the game. I'm talking to you as a someone who's studied psychology, I've just learned. Is there something in that? What do you think switches in people when that happens? And how do you avoid that?
Yeah, I think I can try to give you an example because I think this is about the main point is the initiative. So what teams do wrong is that they give away the initiative that they worked so hard for. And that is something that makes you lose or not win games when you were leading. So I give you an example from something that's not so popular in Australia, obviously, which is indoor hockey. In indoor hockey, you have because we play a lot, obviously, you have this thing that you could lead in important games even by 3 or 4 goals. And then some minutes before the end, let's say 10, the team that is down by 3 goals would pull the goalkeeper and play 6v5, right? And in 8 of 10 cases, the game gets tied after that, even with 4 goals in lead. So not necessarily always that team will win, but it's usually 8 out of 10 times it will end with a goal difference or maybe even a draw or something like that. So 2 years ago, in my very last year, we never won the German championships before that. We decided that whenever that happens, we also pull the goalkeeper and play 6v6. Because we said, we're 3 goals up, so they must be, so we're better 5v5, obviously. So they have to beat us 6v6 now. And what happened was, it was funny because it was a little bit of surprise also for most of the teams, but we didn't end up losing a single period of the game. So I'm not talking about the game, but we didn't even lose a period of that game. Wow. So the period when we played 6v6, we won every single one or at least drew it. And that was because we still had the initiative that we had throughout the entire game. So what happens usually is one team pulls the goalkeeper, the other team goes back and stands with 5 guys in front of their own circle, basically waiting for that other team to find a hole, a loophole to go through and then score a goal. And that's a little bit what happens in field hockey as well, on the outdoors when you're leading by 2 goals and you're trying to secure that win that you don't even have yet, then that means the other teams get the initiative. That means they get more self-confidence and that makes it easier for them to maybe even get back into that game. And the solution, so which would be the next question, what is the solution here? And the solution is, of course, you have to go further into focusing on defense and securing that win, but not by giving away the initiative. So not by just flicking the ball over the other sideline and then waiting for the other team to attack and trying to defend that, but with smart offensive hockey where you focus more on possession rather than on trying to find the big, great ball and to run a counterattack with 8 guys. So even especially in our sport, there are very smart ways in playing smart possession hockey. And I think that many teams are struggling with that. Especially when they're trying to not chase a game, but being ahead and trying to play that home.
That's interesting. Do you think it's easier to play possession hockey now? Obviously, a lot of teams have gone to, I think every international team plays a zone now. Do you think that changes things, changes the approach?
Well, I'm not sure. And I'm honestly not a real big fan of that, what you were just saying, because I think it's very important to be able to do that well. But I think that to really win the big thing, you will in the future need to have at least another system that you can really quickly adapt to, because the coaches and also the experienced players, they are just too good to read games and to play through it. I know that a couple of teams have struggled, especially in Europe, because obviously you guys only meet most of the teams every 2 years. I'm not talking about the Pro League now. I'm talking about like the big tournaments over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But in Europe, I saw, for example, teams like Belgium winning games because the Dutch and the Germans and also the British guys, they couldn't find their way through their zonal defense, and there is a way through there, but it's difficult, and you need probably that passing game that you need to go through such a well-played zonal defense, like yours, by the way, as well. But there are holes there where you can go through, and I think that most teams struggled, especially offensively, over the last couple of years, to beat those good zonal defenses. But
yeah,
that's what I mean. But I think even in it's fun to talk about past games, but so even about probably the best game I ever played with a team in my entire career was the 2012 semifinal against Australia. And such an amazing zonal defense, and the way they played that tournament, scoring 43 goals until that time, was crazy. But we basically just did a new setup. That's when we invented the 5 in the back build-up, and with 2 centers, and suddenly we found a way to let the ball run, because there was no way for us to run more or faster than the Australians. So the coach, before the game, the coach said, guys, we need to have the fittest player on our team, and that's none of you guys. That's the ball. And we need to have it in our team for like most of the time. And it was crazy, because in the end, the possession we had a lot more possession in that game, but Australia had more chances. But most of the chances, I was talking about that with Rick Chardsworth, like in 2 years after that game, and it was really funny because he had a completely different approach. So he said, I don't know how we lost that game. And then he told me about statistics. He told me that they had, I don't know, let's say 22 shots on goal, and we only had 9, and we scored 4 goals and they scored 2. But I said, yeah, but the fun thing is we were looking at it from a completely different perspective. We said, yeah, you had 22 shots on goal, but you had 16 of those shots from an angle of less than 10%. So our goal was to defend them to the baseline, and they had a lot of shots from there, with Max Weinhold just standing on the post and deflecting the ball to a long corner. And he was thinking about that when I said it, because I think he didn't think about it before. And it was a really interesting conversation with him about that, because we had completely different views on that game, because we were happy with those 22 shots, because most of them were not dangerous. And that's basically what it's all about.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I feel like it'd almost have an adverse effect having so many shots, because you kind of start to build up this thing of we can't score, we can't get past them, and that sort of thing. Do you reckon that's fair?
It depends a little bit. I think that's especially when you have like really, really great chances, like 100% goal chance, where you think, oh, I should have made that. But I watched that game a few times, it's not like there were so many chances where you would, like go with your hand through your hair and say, fuck, how could you miss that? It's rather like the chances were 50-50 or maybe even 40-60 from like really bad angle positions. And so we weren't struggling. But I know what you mean. And of course, if that's the case, then that's definitely an important point.
And what does it come down to? Because if you only had 9 or 8 shots at goal and you guys won 4-2, so that's a pretty high percentage. Like that's a high scoring percentage. What's in there? How do you prepare for that? How do you is there a way you could guarantee that you were going to have a high percentage that game, or things just fell your way?
Well, so we scored 2 corners to start with. That's apart from the goal shots, which were, so I scored a corner. I was not a good corner flicker at that time. I think I kind of just surprised I think it was Charter, but I don't know.
Burgers, I think.
I'm not sure. Burgers, okay. I think I kind of surprised him because they didn't expect me to flick. I didn't flick a corner in the entire tournament before that. So I think they thought I would probably play to some of the other guys to deflect it, or maybe even play this 90 degrees corner or whatever. So I just flicked it bottom left, not a hard shot. So that was lucky, or maybe not lucky, but at least efficient. And then the guys played a really amazing corner with Christopher Zeller, not looking at the ball when he picked it up, only looking at the runners, and then putting it to Timo West on the 90 degrees, which was something that the Aussies definitely expected, because we played it so much during that year. but he made that fake just perfectly, and so Timo could flick it in. And apart from that, we had a few good chances. I think we scored the best goal, one of the best goals in world hockey that wasn't given when Oscar Deke
that was amazing.
Took that flick pass, and it was not given because of stick above the shoulder, which they changed immediately after that tournament, which was stupid. But no, I think that was a deserved win, to be honest. And I was always very honest about not winning ugly and stuff. I really don't care about winning ugly, by the way. I just care about winning. But that was a well-deserved win in the end, and it was the most important step for us to the 2012 Olympics.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing game. I remember watching that and just kind of my heart sinking, because I would have been maybe 16 or 17, maybe younger at the time, and just my heart sinking because you could just see the German team just start to roll over the top. And when that goal was disallowed, I mean, there was a massive sense of relief, but it never really went away. It just looked like you guys were so far in control. I want to talk a little bit about, you said that you weren't a great flicker in those days. And I remember talking to you probably, I don't know if you remember this, but we were in India.
Yeah.
You said that it was something that you picked up later in your career. And from memory, it was because there was lack of a better option. Like it was just kind of you were forced to pick up flicking because there was no one else really there who was doing it. Do I remember that correctly? Yeah,
that's true. So that was in our club in Hamburg, where I play, as well as in the national team. It was a little bit like we always had Christopher, but Christopher he's a character. So I would really say he was maybe the best player in the world during that time. And no offense, Jamie or Tön, but if Christopher would have like forced it the way others did, then he would have got that award like 5 or 6 times as well. But he could never, I don't know why, but he could never really force himself to do a little bit more. And he is the most talented player in the world, but he never did much apart from that. So that's why he only has 150 caps or something like that. So not even half of what I have, although he played for a much longer period and was the much more talented player. So but yeah, so he was out for many tournaments during that time. He had some injuries. Sometimes he didn't feel like playing. He just didn't want to. So yeah, and that was when I started to flick, because I also liked it. I thought it was a really cool thing to flick corners, and yeah, I always tried to make it as good as I can. But I was never really good corner flicker. But I think in the end I got quite successful, because I found a way to make it as efficient as possible without having the hardest flick in international hockey.
Yeah. I remember especially that HIL season, you scored, as you said, 11 flicks. But to be fair, not many of them were kind of like pinned top corners or somewhere like Payat. Like you just don't flick like him or Govers, but they just went in, like, I don't know. They were often, the keeper just missed the ball. That's what it looked like. I don't really know. How do you explain your drag flicking mantra?
Well,
because it's effective, as you say. You scored heaps of goals.
Yeah. So especially during that HIL season, but also in the 2016 Olympics before that, I also scored 8 goals there. I think it's like I was only focusing on the fake. How do you say that? Fake?
Deception. Yeah.
So I was trying to pull the ball to the left and then open up my wrist to pretend to flick it to the right, and then pulling it back to the left. So to get the goalkeeper on the wrong foot, and then, or the other way around, to pull it to the right, and then releasing it also to the right, because most of the goalkeepers think that when someone pulls it to the right, they are trying to do that swoosh to the left. And so I was only looking at that and trying to get the goalkeeper on the wrong foot. I don't even think you were just saying I never put a ball top left or top right corner like Gonzalo's doing it. I don't even recall that I flicked the ball higher than the backboard.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Entire tournament. So,
I reckon it even bounced before it went over the line a couple of times.
That's possible, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely possible, yeah. No, that was, I mean, you'll find your way. In the German Bundesliga, I scored 30 goals that season with that flick. So it's obviously, it was hard for goalkeepers to see it coming. I don't know. Maybe that was but I was working a lot on that, what was the nice word? Deception on the pickup of the ball, and how what you do with your hands and your feet and also your hip to pretend something that you're not doing in the end.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. I'm sure a lot of people will be listening to that with interest. That's it for part A. See you soon for part B of the Help Side with Moritz Fuerste, where we talk ACLs, leadership, and retirement. That's it for another episode of the Help Side. Special thanks to my production team of David Moore and Tim Collier, plus countless others working behind the scenes to get this to you. You're the real MVPs. Again, if you're liking the show, please like, subscribe, you know the drill, and get in touch with us via our socials. We would love to hear from you. Anyway, that's all, folks. See you next week.